know I am veteran. Just to know I am veteran. Just to know I am veteran.
Hello, hello, and welcome to the Awakened Winners podcast. This podcast name is Beyond the Cover, and I want to welcome my guest, Keith Jones. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome. And I wanted to just read your bio first before we start, and then I would love for you to introduce yourself and share a little bit about you.
Okay.
But here we go with Keith Jones is the president and CEO of Soul Touching Experiences, LLC. It is an organization aimed at bringing a perspective to the issues of access, inclusion, and empowerment, which affect him as well as others who are persons with and without disabilities. Paralleling with his policy and social justice work, Mr. Jones is a multi-talented artist who, along with Leroy Moore and Rob Temple, founded the Emmy Award-winning Crip Hop Nation, which is an international collection of artists with disabilities.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm so excited to have you here. I will give you the microphone.
Every time I hear that bio, I always start bugging, like, damn, I did all that.
You-
But my name is Keith Jones. I'm also a person with cerebral palsy who is an ambulatory wheelchair user. That's kind of important because there's controversy about people who uses wheelchairs who can also walk. So apparently there's a glitch in the matrix when people think about that. But the other things that I do in terms of the policy work really is focused on not just resolving the issues, but getting us to a point where in our society, we don't need to be advocates. We can just live our life and go on about our business.
Amen. I wanted to name this conversation Beyond the Cover with Keith Jones because one of the things that I've learned as a mother with a child born with Down syndrome is that people often look at the cover, right? Like of a book, right? Or of a person, and don't take the time to read it to find out more information. So we analyze the outside of the book and we create a story around what we see rather than really reading the story and getting to know the truth of it.
Oh, that was yesterday. That's going to be about 20 minutes when I go downstairs to get coffee. That was tomorrow. That was last week. Because however we show up, people are process information. So one thing, there's that old adage that we as human beings or creatures, we're very visual. Like we see, that's why our senses are not as heightened as certain species on the planet where we use our smell, we use our hearing. We're visual along with all those other things. Unfortunately, those visuals are often distorted or shaped by the society in which you were taking them in. So if I'm a person with a disability in the country who people think like, ew, you shouldn't be outside. So of course, when they see me, they instantly, like yesterday, a wheelchair, black man, not pushing it, using his feet. That calculation in the city like New York or in Newark or in any train station or any bus station would connote homelessness, mental health challenges, and thus people respond to me that way sometimes. So I have a when I leave this hotel with a backpack on my wheelchair and I should have rolled to the corner, 9 times out of 10, the cover to other people would be, oh, it's nice that he's out, but is he homeless? I tongue-in-cheek joke about it, but that has been a response as recently as a month ago coming in South Station in Boston. So the cover, and this is what I tell people, but your cover is not, your responsibility is not to interpret the cover for other people. I listen, tell my fault you stupid when you say hi to me. I can't help that. So if you're not smart enough to see my humanity, but you have enough in your brain or your cognition to construct a completely false narrative about my humanity, but you don't have enough to give me grace enough for that not to be true.
Mm, powerful. Powerful. And my experience with people after I had my son is also that people do not have filters,
No.
that they don't. I mean, this is not everyone, right? So I don't like to generalize a whole population according to some people, right? Because some people are aware, some people do function from compassion and empathy, and they just see a human for who they are, right? I'm one of those people. Okay. I know you're one of those people.
Right.
And so I know that not everybody functions the same, but there's some people that function from a place of no filter, of this imagination that it is okay for them to just say whatever it is that they're thinking, rather than like, I'm
Mm,
thinking this.
right.
Should I say it? And if you're questioning it, maybe talking to somebody you trust to find out, what are the right things to say when I see somebody that's different. What what how do I proceed to say hello and get curious, because people are curious, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I've had so many things said to me that are like, it's like you're speaking to his mother.
Yes.
I'm his mother, right? Like, why do you think this happened to you? You're such a good person.
Yes.
I feel sorry for Nick because he's never going to have a normal life. I'm like, what is going on around here?
Those kind of sentiments. So I'm a little older now, probably a little more jaded and bitter too. But I tend to, I've had over the course of my career, over the course of the last whatever, just excluding my own personal whatever. What I've found is that the people often try to put the burden on the people they're not comfortable around in order to make them feel like they want people to shrink their humanity in order to fit to make them feel comfortable. Somebody coming up to you saying, "Oh, so sorry, why do you think this happened to you? What about Nick?" Telling my mother, they go telling me that they're praying for me because of what happened to my mother, which has caused me to be this way. Um, and having people run up and put hands on you so that you start praying to fix you and heal you. Like these are all life experiences, and the juxtaposition for parents and children who are in this world of disability or whatever our human condition shows up, that puts us in these decisions or discussions in our society, is that the burden is not on us to solve your stupidity. You running up to Lloyd and saying, "Oh my God, what happened?" Is not Lloyd's responsibility to explain to you the reason you should have never opened your mouth to say the dumbest things possible.
Right, right.
Right? I mean, because it's basic. I mean, you would hope that people would have common sense and say, okay, but the thing about common sense, it ain't common. So I think those interactions of what they did to you or what they've said to me, what they said to my mother, and my mother, what they was saying to my mothers in the 60s and the 70s, when the language was way more harsh. Um,
Mhm.
and the consequences were, we can take your child from you because mongoloids don't live on the street, and these little handicapped crippled kids need to go to an institution. That was all the way up until I was 12.
Right.
So the cover.
The cover. When people ask the question, it depends how they ask the question, right? Because some people would say things like, "What's wrong with your son?" It's like, mm, you know,
They, I,
you like have no words.
because I've heard all of that. Like,
Yeah.
I've watched them ask my mother those same things. That's my grandmother. Like that for me, that either with Nick and you and either the Lord, like when we first met. For those who don't know, Lloyd and I go back like recliners. Is that the generations of how far we've come in terms of just being able to be out and about is legitimately not as far as people think we are, because people are persistent upon, oh, well, what's wrong with Nick? I'm sitting here, people, literally, I went into the doctor, like, well, what happened to you? Well, what happened? This is my doctor.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter where people are. There's that, and I think for me, when I hear people talk about the height of intelligence or human beings at the apex of cognition and intelligence in the universe, but we are unable to just to deal with humans because internally you're not comfortable.
Right.
So what happened to Nick? What happened to Nick? What happened to Keith? Like there's a distinction between not asking what happened and then you just being malicious with it, because it's all intent. And to say, because asking me what happened is presuming something put me in a negative state, and that means that you are looking at me as if my life is somehow a tragic outcome.
Yes. I mean, there's so much in these conversations, and like I'm like listening to you, and I'm like, oh my God, I want to say this, I want to say this, I want to say this. But I do want to share. So when I met Keith, I met him at a leadership conference for parents that have children with special needs, and just seeing him speak about his journey and share so much, right? Like you've been married, right? You have children, right? But as you were sharing, when you were speaking, to the mind's eye, right? People will judge and think that you've had no life, that you've never had a relationship, that you don't have kids, right? That you're a bum in the streets, right? Because you said that people would throw coins at you.
Okay.
Right. And so it's like, just like I said earlier, just creating this whole reality, quote unquote, around what we see rather than getting curious. And if curious, asking with words that aren't offensive, that
Can you say it again for the people in the back?
that aren't diminishing somebody's humanity. But what I've learned in my journey is that if somebody doesn't see themselves as whole, right? If I don't see myself as a whole person, as whole, meaning one with God, one with the universe, one with love, I am love, right? Then I can't project that onto other people. So people only project from their own broken.
Yeah. Yes.
You know what I mean? So, because to me, somebody can have no legs, no arms, right? They are still whole.
Yeah.
If they are one with God, they are born perfect, whole, and complete. But it takes a level of consciousness to be able to see an individual through the eyes of love.
Okay, can you just say that again for the people way in the back? Because that, part of the reason the company's called Soul Touch and Experiences, the tagline is everything has a soul. So you do everything with a heart and soul commitment, whether it's engaging in the community, whether it's writing policy that's around healthcare, education. It's from a point where we understand that the end goal is to improve humanity. And not from a subjective, like, well, look, I'm improved because I got more money than that slave to the gutter. But understanding, and we having this conversation, that our independence is interdependent. Right? I would, you talk about having societal norms, and when somebody says a normal life, I'm a black man in the United States. Cerebral palsy is a part of my human condition, but my melanin content by structure of society and law puts my life in danger daily, separate and apart from the fact that people don't think I'm human because I have a wheelchair.
Mm.
So when people talk to me about having a normal life, how do you have a normal life in the context of being generations descendants of those stolen people on a land where the same laws that they use to discriminate against you because of your disability are predicated upon your ethnicity?
Mm.
So the reason you can't have people hanging in certain places, the reason America is the birthplace of eugenics, they would handicap and cripple slaves. Me being born in, if I'm born with cerebral palsy on a plantation, I am now quote alligator bait. Like there's this whole, so when people are asked, so either now when we have this larger discussion about, oh my God, what happened today? What happened to you? It's like that does not exist in a vacuum. We are in a place where if you're Latino, if you're Latinx, there's a percent. If you speak Spanish, then people forget that Spanish is actually a colonial language from Europe.
Mm.
But because of the way they have constructed the narrative around people with melanin speaking Spanish, it is, it's it coming up in the 80s. The derogatory terms about people coming from Mexico, or if you're coming from the Dominican Republic, or even the Spanish speaking islands and colonies on this side of the planet. My melanin content will get me in situations where people who are from certain islands don't want to associate as being black. Never alone add on the disability to it. So when people say have a normal life, right? Like what life are you defining as normal? How am I defining normal in a country where 7 out of 10 people who have violent interactions with police will end up dead, or people with disabilities, people who are nonverbal or who have communication differences, or more often than not, like there are consequences to your not being able to see me or Nick or you or my mama or anybody we're attached to as whole humans, because you have set it up to think that normal is a static condition. You know, like people who are 25, baby, I can drink all night at 25. You try that at 40, you gonna wake up, you gonna think somebody hit you in the head with a baseball bat.
Right.
We are constantly changing, and our human condition is constantly evolving. But if we can't see us through love, or just at minimum the way you want to be treated, like that's like the most basic. If you don't if you don't want people to walk up and say hello and punch you in the face, maybe you should not walk up and say hello and punch people in the face.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Right.
there's a right. So how do we, like you said, in their conscious state? How do we get to a point? It would be nice to get to a point where we're not convincing teachers that students are worthy of being taught solely because teachers don't like students with disabilities. We're not, we're sending our kids to public schools where we're not predicating their resources upon property tax, but because we believe that children are worthy of being taught, regardless of their quote diagnosis.
Right.
So what is normal?
What is normal? That's the one of the biggest things, because when this person said that to me, I know that in that moment we were surrounded by people at a
Right.
party that were on drugs or drinking alcohol, lost, right? Many of them lost. And so to me, listening to this person and being in the surroundings, I'm like, what is normal? Because if this is what's normal,
Yeah.
I want the normal of my son.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Right.
My son is next level joy. He's amazing. He's presence. He's exudes love, right?
Right.
I call him Nicholas King Joy, right? Like I love being around him, and I love him, and I get to be loved by him. That to me is such a privilege. And what I was hearing you say also about, like, all of your experiences, it compounded hate,
Mhm.
compounded hate. Like, what in the world? And who gives people the right to say what's right and what's wrong according to their idea of perfection, right? Their perception
Right.
of perfection, right? Like, okay, no, that then they're actually, without awareness, some of them are putting themselves on a pedestal,
Yeah. Oh,
right?
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
so they're above and they're seeing you, right, and Nicholas or me or anybody as
Mhm.
being low, right? Because if you're feeling sorry for somebody, you see them as less than.
Oh, see, the those things when I tell people it's one of those things. So depending on where they meet me, and I whatever people's connection is to their faith and their spirituality, but the terminology I use is preach what you practice. Not practice what you preach, because those are not the same things.
Mm-mm.
Right? Like if I'm preaching what I practice, I'm already doing it. So I'm not telling you that I'm not doing it. And it's like, oh, you should be so loving, and then you turn around and it's like, and I hate gays. Well, you're not preaching what you're practicing.
Right.
You're um but when you just said that, there's this whole notion of wholeness and perfection and disability. It's like it's not because we are broken. It's because humanity hasn't figured out how to just love itself.
Mm.
Like
Exactly.
there is no there's 7.5 plus billion people on the planet. Just by odds, some of us are going to come out of the factory oven a little overcooked, a little undercooked. Some gonna be squishy in the middle, but all the cookies still taste good, right? The question is, who is looking at you and saying your humanity doesn't fit my notion of perfection?
Mm-hmm.
And when people look at me, and like you were saying in the beginning, I used to tell people, I'm like, the reason when they're putting themselves on the pedestal, it's not, oh, I'm so this, oh, Miss Harold, so that. If they're looking at you and going, but for the grace of God, there go I. Because in their mind, they could never conceptualize, quote unquote, what it's like to be a mother of a child with a disability or that person with a disability. Because they don't, their frame of reference is from deficit.
Yes.
What we don't quote unquote have, what we can't quote unquote do, what we're not able to quote unquote be. Like when you talk about when people go, you got kids, baby. When you hear me say I got kids, you can see the look on their faces, and you can see them trying to do the math. Like,
Mm-hmm.
well, wheelchair black man to say, oh my, yes, we do those things too, and it changes their whole, But then again, my question is not but my disgust doesn't lie to me. It's like, how do you wake up every morning in that brain of yours, carrying around such bad information and then acting upon it? Like, I don't care if you don't like me. That's not my concern.
Yeah.
It's when you inject that into my space by saying, what happened to you? Oh my God, you're so strong. Keith, you're so inspiring. It's a cup of coffee. I went across the street and got a cup of coffee. Now, granted, it's my coffee and I like it and it's special to me. But why is that symbolic to me? Because people can't conceptualize
Mm-hmm.
Nick just getting up and being happy about Nick, or Keith getting up and just going to get a cup of coffee because they have been conditioned and they've accepted that conditioning. Because that's the difference.
You're right.
We are we are first of all, we're burdens if we stay around. And those who keep us are sacrosanct because they've taken on this burden of helping this broken human continue to exist.
Right.
Which is why in states now they're passing assisted suicide laws. Because states and people believe that we are better off dead than existing. And so what is normal and what is that placing yourself on a pedestal solely because you can't see us functioning as a human because society tells you we're broken, which is just weird to me because it's like, I'm my own person. Well, apparently not, because you keep taking this information and trying to drag me down that rabbit hole with you. You're
Right.
smarter than that, ain't you? Yeah. Well, then stop, right? Then let me go about my business. Right? So those are the kind of challenges I think when you talk about pedestals, normality. Us, because we exist in our joy, but people being very disgusted that we're actually happy. Like, why are you happy? It's like, why are you happy with Nick as your son?
Right.
My baby. Why are you happy with Keith? You have cerebral palsy. I love life. My life is good. It's only when you weirdos interjected and tried to tell me that I should be depressed because I have cerebral palsy. So.
And the truth is that life comes with challenges. Like, Nicholas having to go through surgery because he has severe sleep apnea, seeing these incisions on his, under his chin and on his chest, like, oh, my baby, I love him and I want to protect him. I don't want him to hurt. And the crazy thing is that I've felt more like I've had to protect him from other people's projections more than anything.
Yes.
Right? Like my fears and concerns come from legit, like, how are people treating him when I'm not around? Right? How will people treat him when I'm not there? Will he have enough awareness in himself to say, absolutely not, you don't get to treat me like that when it comes to somebody being emotionally abusive or physically abusive?
I'm gonna be 55. My mama still asks me who you going with. And but again, people are like, oh my God, your mother is such a wonderful advocate. She raised a black man in America. Let's be absolutely clear. From St. Louis, Missouri. Be absolutely clear. When in 1989, in 1988 in Boston, they were lining black men up because a white man said a black man had shot his wife. So disability, yes. But the next point of walking out my door and walking into, there just was an article. It's like, I get anxiety when I see police cars. To this day. Not because I've been a criminal, but because on instances where I've been walking without the wheelchair, I've been harassed. Because of my walk, people think I'm intoxicated. In those moments where you got pulled over, people are like, oh my man, we was going over the George Washington Bridge, and the police pulled us over. 2 black men in the car, driving while black. This is in the 90s before it became a catchphrase. The cop looks in the car, puts his hand on his gun, puts a flashlight in the window. Put your hands up. Clearly, I ain't gonna put my hands up too high. And Seth, in fact, my friend's like, oh my God, he has a disability. And so those moments of, oh my God, you are in a position of power and authority and are dumber than the bag of rocks. That because of the way you view my humanity, I could be gone in 2 seconds. Those, so when people talk about being really good advocates and being these things, I'm like, it's way bigger than that. Because advocating for my PC to come to my house is cool. But if I can't get into my house because the lady took me out because they think I don't belong in the neighborhood, damn the PCA. So how are you looking at me? And if you say something to me and I'm nonverbal, but I can communicate, are you going to be patient enough to listen to the way I communicate? More often than not, that happened in upstate New York. Young man, autistic, took him out the game. So when people talk about these, it's more than just how treatment. It's when you look at the cover and you make all of those assumptions. The reality is, for those of us of color with disabilities, the outcome can be catastrophic. And if we choose to say, well, we just want to have a full life, whether that's marriage or dating or things like that, that same level of catastrophe befalls us in policy where people go, I mean, you ain't dead, but you need a house, so we'll give you enough money for you not to have enough. And if you claim to want more help, then you're a burden on society. Except we'll stand this $7.5 billion industry that is based upon warehousing you. Like, those are the reasons that these kind of conversations about, not just perceptions, because perceptions are fine. Like humans are able to get over that. It's the active, intentional implementation of bias, which leads to known negative outcomes, which is what is the problem in terms of just because me and Nick be chilling. We was thinking he was hella cool when I was talking to you the other day. We vibing. We ain't worried about it. People always look at us and go, or and it's different because even when people come to disability, like if they acquire a disability, they then are crossing over that Rubicon and go, oh, this is what y'all was talking about. Yeah, this like human people really, if a mother gives birth to a child with a disability, people act differently. As you know, people, my mother, the person with a disability who then in turn has a child. The things that were told to me about that were like, they were like, well, why would you bring a child into the world knowing what you have? What? Somebody had you, right? Like, let's keep it a buck.
Yes. Who determines worthy of life? Like that's the biggest thing. It's like who determines a worthy of life and according to what condition? And when I say conditions, it's like what we were conditioned to believe, right? So people are taught hate. We're not born hating. We are taught hate,
Yes.
right? And so if people see a black man and they're judging a black man, they were taught. That was somebody taught you that, right? um if you see somebody in a wheelchair and assume they can't do anything, most likely somebody said that around you, like even
Mm-hmm.
even in conversations, people would say, oh, you changed my perception around people with Down syndrome. When I was in school before, I used to call them the R word and
Yeah.
say that, oh, look at the table with all the R words, and I'm like, but they would say the word and it was just like, oh, like I don't want to hear this. Like I just want people to be around my son and see his humanity and love his humanity, that they don't just see someone that learns differently. Like, can we chill? Can we hang out and we'll have a good
I,
time? That's
I
it.
think, can we please? I look. Look. I just want some good bachata, some good merengue, some R&B. I want some arroz con pollo. I want some cabui with some leg, collard greens and pig. Like I want and peace. Like
Yes.
what you just described is, um, for me. It's one of those things. It's like the journey is always a journey. Like you always on the road somewhere. You know, but in moments where people are being actively hostile, like you said, somebody taught hate is taught, love is taught, and so when you said that I was teaching my kids, all my kids, but I have to tell my children, prep them for how people are going to come at them, not because of who they are, but because of who their father is.
Yeah.
Whether it's my son who now the cool new term is I'm biracial or mixed or all of these things. I'm like, bruh, trust us, we was not that cool when you was being born. Like the 80s and the 90s to have the black man with a white woman, particularly coming out of the 70s. Oh baby, I can't tell you the kind of dragging I got. But the conversation I had to have with my child was, you are not either or. You are you. You are both.
Right.
However, here is the framework in which that he needs to exist. When they see you, they're not gonna see your mama. They're gonna see your daddy. And more importantly, even within our culture, they'll see your mama, but they're gonna call you your daddy. Because white woman, black man, black baby. Why is that a construct? Because in America, one is descended from the 1/16th rule, which means one drop, 1/16 black blood, you are black in America. Why is that important? Because it carries all of these legal ramifications and negative socioeconomic connotations, which is why when you talk about white passing, it's because you are escaping the penalties of what society will do to you for you recognizing your blackness, and you will get the benefits of what you get in terms of this white dominated culture. And that in disability is exceedingly prevalent, where amongst disability groups, if you're a person with Down syndrome versus a person with a traumatic brain injury versus somebody with a mental, and I'm sitting there going, what are all these verses? Like, we all have some level of need in something. The fact that you are smart enough to figure out how to categorize me in order to minimize me shows that you have a level of creativity, but it shows me that you're a level of stupidity too. Because if you're creative enough to segregate us, then why you're not creative enough to unify us? Just curious.
Powerful. So freaking powerful. I feel like I can talk to you all day about these projections, right?
Yeah.
Like, the how much we judge the cover. One of the things I shared in my first video was about how I was judged for my smile when I was a kid. And that shifted a lot for me in terms of being more aware for Nicholas.
Yes.
Because I experienced rejection according to my smile. I knew I didn't know then, but I know now that people were projecting their broken, right? Their perception of perfection. So then I started to take on what they were saying as truth, right? I covered my mouth when I laughed, right? Like, nobody's supposed to see this smile, right? And changing myself according to how other people perceive me. I then have a child years later and start to notice how people perceive him. And think to myself, no, wait, there's something wrong here.
Yeah.
It's not my child. And getting to study the perception, or choosing to study the perception of perfection.
Yeah.
And writing a book, which I'll share again, The Awakened Winners. We already won. You can find it at theawakenedwinners.com, my website. But writing a book to help people awaken to their own magnificence. Right? Because people that don't see their own magnificence can't see somebody else's.
It's funny that you chose the word magnificence. The video we're here in New York shooting, the name of the song is called Magnificent.
Hey, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to listen to that song.
Yeah, just to like, if I leave people with anything about that, it's not like I'm not asking you to bring me to your house and let me have dinner with you. I'm asking for, not even asking, because I think the dynamic in our communities, disability community, are those of us who are on, quote unquote, the societal margins, who get those, who deal with the real life and death socioeconomic repercussions of those marginalizations. Part of it is, for me, and what I hope I try to help, is that we're not asking you to give us, because that connotes power that you have over my ability to exist. I'm not asking you for my rights. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at you and say, all right, now this is how you moving. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Ain't that what y'all keep talking about? Right? Is that, how do we, so it's no longer asking you. It's here in the community for people with disabilities. Here are your tools, not to ask, not to request, not to demand, but to get. When somebody can say to you, you need to request your freedom. Who has the ability to give me my freedom? Because the question is, because if you have the ability to give it to me, you have the ability to take it away. Who who's going to give me my right to education? Who's going to give us our right to give Nick the ability to have more than $5,000 in the bank because he's a person with a disability? Who's going to give me that right? And then I have to make an emotional appeal to your hate in order for you to acknowledge my rights and please give them to me. Then we as a community have to understand that the person with the title ain't no different than you. The distinction between you and that person is a job title. Like, because I promise you, if they hold their breath long enough, they'll stop breathing just like everybody else. So our humanity is all interconnected. Our independence is interdependent. Hopefully, for our community, I think we have some really good people who are, you are the light that people need coming up. Because I don't think people really understand that this movement, our Nick being able to do what he's doing and me being, all of this is literally like 50 years old. This is in my lifetime. So kids, so 19, 20, you couldn't do this 30 years ago. So understanding that where we are is drastically far ahead of where we were, yet it is nowhere near where we need to be.
Yes, I love that. Two things came up for me as we merged to the end of our conversation. We are all different and the same.
Yes.
If we can see that, and really that our life can change in an instant, that you can judge somebody according to what you believe their life is, right? Like from a pity, and your life all of a sudden changes, right? You might lose a limb, right? Like that or anything could happen. Like I know that I had a tumor on my hamstring, right? And I thought I was going to die or lose my limb, right? And really awakening to the fact that the only thing I have control over is how I receive the moment.
Yeah.
How I am in this moment. And I choose to greet the moment with love. I choose to greet the moment with open arms and an open heart. I get to love and be loved. I get to experience joy at its fullest. I get to experience God right now.
Right.
And one of the quotes that I wrote in my book is, be as loving as the God you believe in. Right. And I wanted to share that because depending on how people are practicing religion, they could, diminish your humanity, right? They say that you're just less than. It's just the pedestal thing that we were talking about, and trying to convince people that they have to do or be a certain way in order to fit in the box that they want to put them into, rather than we are all humans and we get to believe in what we believe as long as we're doing good, right? Be as loving as the God you believe in. It means I don't need to convince you that there's a higher power. I need to embody it. I have to embody that higher power and be as loving as the God you believe in. But you were going to say something. I want to know.
Other than a hallelujah, amen. But that's, this is where that the intersection of disability, ethnicity, society, faith, and religion, that tends to contort people in ways in which they will lean on the most insidious parts of it. So to be born in St. Louis and to grow up in a Baptist church, yet still want to have people pray and heal me while saying that God makes no mistakes. It's contradictory. How can you say God don't make no mistakes, and then you're telling me God makes no mistakes? So everything we're doing is preordained. So but again, however your faith walk is, but the preordained things, and this is. But then I'm here. You literally was sitting next to me in the pew and heard this, but I'm broken. Yeah. I'm not really
make it make sense. Make it make
sense. The math ain't mathing, right?
Yes.
Whether it's somebody's, gender identity or the way they choose to express their intimacy doesn't comport with your belief. You just said that the God that you're basing it on don't make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
If there are no mistakes, then you have no basis for your hate for how my humanity shows up.
Right.
As now, you can make them up, but then that means to tell me that you're being more influenced by man than you are by your God,
Right.
because you're predicating your hate on me. And so I think the journey is always that, be the God you embody, be the light you embody. Again, if you're going to walk your faith, that's not every faith walk and journey walk is an individual walk. But when you interact with people, and I tell people this, and like the measure of your humanity is the way is how do you treat others.
Exactly.
If I can look at you and you can tell me, I know a million pastors with beautiful homes who step over the homeless every day.
Yes.
I
Yes.
don't. So this is why and when it comes to disability and inclusion and acceptance, it's really, those are just handles. What it really is about is, can we form a society where you are not intentionally isolating me because you're uncomfortable with my humanity.
Yes. I mean, so much, so much. I'm like, oh my God, I want to like lean over here and, like to do what you do from love is so important. If you're practicing religion, if you're a consciousness worker, spiritual, to do what you do from love. If you're human, to do it from love, it changes things. Because if you do it from a place of you're on a pedestal that you got the keys to the kingdom, and
Right.
everybody else doesn't have the keys to the kingdom, and they're supposed to do or be or have whatever you state they should in order to be connected, you've lost it. You've
Oh, I just will say, there was one story, because you told me to. I was sitting in church years ago, and again, it's not a religious debate. It's about the soul and the energy and being connected and wanting to be a part of my community. And I'm sitting in there, and this was a pastor that we prior to getting married, we were considering having him perform the service. Clearly, is he. Okay, I'll say he presented as a person who had a disability or something. Um, at the time, I had cerebral palsy. My fiance, my daughter's mother, was visually impaired. We had a conversation. But we're sitting in the church, and he's giving this sermon, but it was the most homophobic sermon. And I remember there was something he said about how the way you're behaving is entity, and my soul shook. So much so that I looked around the entire church because I thought an earthquake had hit. Like, it was the most violent. But my body didn't move. It was my soul, and I was like, how can I be in a place that is professing love and hear such hate and base it upon the word that you literally are inverting the word and the message. And so whatever your road is to your faith, if you are going to use, you know, and I tell people, I say, let's be clear. People are just as fervent about their Baptist or their Pentecostal or their Catholic, their Catholicism, as they are about their Democratic and Republican affiliations.
Yes.
So their religion can be their politics. And if your religion or your politics, then you can shape policies that says we don't want transgender children in our school, and we're not going to give them gender affirming care because we don't think that your humans are like that. So if you can do that to those kids, what you gonna do to kids who you think are quote with the R word and quote cripple? Like we were joking about it the other day, and I'll wrap it up like this. FEMA does not have a standard for evacuating people with disabilities and elderly in national emergencies. If a hurricane is to come, we not going. We gonna sit there and wait and they might get us. Actual fact, the next time you take an airline flight, ask the flight attendant, what is the evacuation plan for people with disabilities? They will tell you that if in the event of a crash, you are to sit and wait for everybody to get off the plane, and then we'll come back and get you.
Wow.
You ain't no way in hell in an emergency you're gonna go, oh, let me go back and get that one disabled person that we told we'll come back and get.
Yeah.
Because it didn't happen in Katrina, it didn't happen in Ida, it did not happen in the snow again. So it's not just if you're using, if your religion is, based upon a deity or a higher power. Some people's religions are economic, some people's religions are politics. And those shape how those perceptions of our humanity are existing in this world.
Yes. Yes. Oh my God. We have to do a part 2. We have got to do a part 2. I appreciate that we went into how some people practice religion, because I think that that's such a huge and important topic, because if people are sharing a message of God and it's coming through as hate, that's a big problem. That's a
Yeah,
big problem. If somebody is practicing religion from an egoic standpoint, like I'm better than I got the keys, that's a big problem, because there's so many of us. And then this person is saying they got the keys, this person is saying it. Of course, then we are gonna kill ourselves, right? We're gonna kill each other. We're gonna, because I'm right and you're wrong, which defeats the purpose. It's not what religion was intended for. It was intended for relationship and
yeah,
love, to
yeah,
learn how to love. How could
yeah.
I be loving? So I'll leave it there. I am so grateful for you. I know that you said that you were sharing something and it was like what you wanted to leave, but I still want to ask, if you were to leave one message for the listeners, what would that be?
Uh, Before you speak, think. And it sounds like one of those old after school specials, but there's a lot of things that happen between the thought process and it coming out of your lips, because you can't unspeak words. Like on social media, people are like, I deleted the post, but there's a lot of things that have to happen before you hit send or post. So saying I was just angry and I couldn't think it, and I left anybody with one thing, is that this is not about competition. This is about the elevating humanity. This is about actually living that which you say you are. Right? Oh, I love you. And again, you don't need to like anybody or everybody. You do have to understand that our independence is interdependent. You can be an isolationist, nobody cares. But if you're an isolationist, do you grow your own food and make your own power? And can you perform your own surgery? We are all connected,
Right.
whether or not you agree with it or not. And if you want to be a narcissist about your humanity, treat everybody with nothing but love and light.
I love it. It is not a competition. The awakened winners, we already won. Emphasis on we, all of us.
Yes.
And I actually want to share the last piece of a song that I've written with my son. I haven't even recorded yet, but I feel like it's an important phrase to share right before I end this conversation. Um, so the words are, my son was born under attack, told to conform or else he was whack. Created music to give them the facts. He's perfection, there's nothing he lacks. Okay? That's everything to me, because he's perfection. And
Yes.
we have to have conversations like that, like this, or create music, create shows, so that people can see my son's
Yes.
humanity so they can see your humanity. Like that's that's the mind-blowing thing. Like that like we shouldn't even have to, but we're here.
No,
And and we're doing the thing. And I'm excited that I get to share your light with other people, your intelligence, your brilliance, your magnificence. I cannot wait to hear your new song and watch the new video. I appreciate everything you've done and continue to do for humanity, for love and from love. I see you, I admire you, and I love you. Thank you for being on the Awakened Winners podcast.
thank you. Thank you.